I traveled to the lakefront for weekend relaxation, yet the kitchen and main room were leveled for renovation. My mother declared, "We're redoing it for your brother and his wife." I pulled out my property deed and phoned my attorney. The very next day, my entire family received a huge shock. What would you do if you drove to your sanctuary, the one place you truly felt at peace, only to find it completely demolished? Not by strangers, but by the very people who swore they loved you most, your own family. This isn't just a story about a house. It's about a battle for my sanity, my boundaries, and ultimately myself. I still remember pulling into that gravel driveway, the Friday afternoon sun glinting off the lake. 3 glorious days stretched ahead, silence, water, and absolutely no work emails. I'd earned it. The Henderson deal had consumed me for 6 months, leaving me utterly drained. My job as a commercial real estate broker in Austin was demanding, and this lake house in the hill country, 2 hours outside the city, was my refuge. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. But the moment I opened the front door, a cold dread washed over me. The air was thick with dust, choking, and acrid. My beautiful living room, with its cream sofas and vintage lake photographs, was gone. Just gone. Instead, exposed beams clawed at the air, drywall was ripped apart, and construction equipment lay scattered across what used to be my gleaming hardwood floors. My sneakers crunched on debris as I stepped forward, my chest tightening with a sickening certainty. The kitchen was even worse. The custom cabinets I'd saved 3 years for? Torn out, leaving gaping holes in the walls. The marble countertops I'd installed just last spring? Shattered, lying in pieces on the floor. And my vintage farmhouse sink, the one I'd driven 4 hours to San Antonio to find? Missing entirely. In its place stood a concrete mixer and stacks of new cabinetry, still in boxes. I stood there, frozen, my mind desperately trying to process the scene. This was my house. I had bought it 5 years ago with my own money, my own down payment, my own mortgage payments every single month. I'd spent countless weekends pouring love into this place, choosing paint colors, refinishing the dock, planting flower beds along the stone path to the water. My phone was already in my hand, an instinct, when I heard footsteps on the porch. "Bella, sweetie, you're here early." My mother stepped through the doorway, a bright, oblivious smile on her face. It faltered the moment she saw my expression. She wore white linen pants and a coral blouse, her silver hair pulled back in her usual neat bun. Behind her, my father followed, looking uncharacteristically uncomfortable in cargo shorts and a fishing vest. "What happened to my house?" My voice came out as a whisper, barely audible, trembling with disbelief. Mom waved her hand dismissively, stepping carefully around a pile of broken tiles. "Oh, don't worry about the mess. The contractor said they'll have everything cleaned up by next month. It's going to look absolutely beautiful when it's finished." "Finished?" I repeated, the word tasting like ash. "Mom, what are you talking about? Who authorized this?" She blinked at me, genuinely confused by my reaction. "Well, we did, honey. Your father and I. We've been planning this renovation for months." I pulled out my phone and scrolled frantically through my texts. Dozens of messages from my mother over the past few weeks. Updates about my nephew's baseball games, questions about Sunday dinner, reminders about my cousin's wedding. Nothing. Absolutely nothing about demolishing my house. "There's nothing here about a renovation," I said, holding up my phone, my voice gaining a dangerous edge. My father cleared his throat. "Your mother mentioned it at dinner 3 weeks ago. You said it sounded fine." I stared at him. I said what sounded fine. "The remodeling." Mom interjected, her tones still annoyingly cheerful. "We told you we wanted to update the kitchen and open up the living room. You were on your phone, but you nodded and said it sounded nice." A hazy memory surfaced. Sunday dinner at their house. I'd been utterly exhausted from a week of brutal negotiations, responding to urgent client emails while my mother talked about something. I'd probably just nodded, a polite, automatic gesture, without truly listening. Even if I said that, I began, my voice trembling with suppressed rage, which I don't even remember. This is my house. You can't just hire contractors and tear it apart without my explicit permission. This is not your property." My mother's expression shifted then, something cold crossing her face. Bella, honey, don't be dramatic. We're doing this for the family. Your brother and Victoria are going to need more space soon, and this house is just sitting here empty most of the time. It makes sense to make it more functional for when they visit. The words hit me like a physical blow. For when Jacob and Victoria visit? I choked out. For when they move in, Mom corrected gently, as if this was perfectly normal. We've been talking about this for months, sweetheart. Jacob's marketing firm is expanding, and he wants to open a satellite office out here. The lake house is perfect for them. Plenty of room for an office, and Victoria has always loved the water. Plus, they're trying for a baby. I felt the room spinning. Move in, Mom? This is my house. I bought it. I own it. Well, technically, we helped with the down payment, my father said quietly, chipping in, as if that justified any of this. You gave me $15,000 5 years ago as a birthday gift. I retorted, my voice rising. The remaining $75,000 came from my savings, and I have been paying the mortgage by myself ever since. My mother sighed, as if I was being utterly unreasonable. Nobody is giving anything to anyone, Bella. We're just making it nicer for everyone to use. You're always so busy with work anyway. You barely come out here twice a month. Jacob and Victoria will actually live here. Take care of it properly. My jaw clenched. That was it. The casual dismissal, the blatant entitlement, the idea that my hard work meant nothing because they felt Jacob deserved it more. Get out, I said quietly, the words cutting through the dusty air. Then, louder, a tremor in my voice, Bella, get out of my house. Now. They left. My mother's protests faded as my father guided her out to their car. I stood in the doorway and watched them drive away, dust rising from the gravel behind their tires like a shroud. The moment they disappeared from view, I pulled out my phone and called the only person I knew would understand. Bella, my best friend Jessica's voice came through, clear and concerned. I thought you were at the lake house this weekend. No cell service, no contact, remember. Jess, I need help, I choked out, my voice cracking, tears finally blurring my vision. They destroyed it. They destroyed my house. 20 minutes later, I had explained everything, Jessica listening without a single interruption. When I finished, there was a long, stunned silence. Your parents hired contractors to demolish your kitchen and living room without your permission because they're planning to give your house to your brother? And they claim it's been discussed for months and you somehow missed it all. Jessica's voice was incredulous. Bella, that is not legal at all. They cannot just take over your property like this. I wiped my eyes. I know. I can't believe they actually did it. Jessica made a disgusted sound. Your family has always treated Jacob like the golden child, but this is beyond anything I've heard before. What are you going to do? I looked around at the utter destruction. Years of my work, my savings, demolished in the name of my brother's convenience. Something hard and cold settled deep in my chest. I'm going to call my attorney, I said, my voice now firm. And then I'm going to make sure this never, ever happens again. After I hung up, I walked through the house slowly, meticulously documenting everything with my phone camera, the destroyed kitchen, the demolished living room, the construction equipment scattered everywhere. I photographed the boxes of new cabinets, clearly more expensive than what I'd installed, and the high-end appliances still wrapped in plastic. Then I drove into town, to the only hotel near the lake, a small bed and breakfast run by an elderly couple who knew me from my frequent visits. I thought you had the whole weekend at your place, the owner said, looking confused. Change of plans, I replied, a tight smile on my face. Family issues. That night, lying in an unfamiliar bed, I pulled out my laptop and opened the file where I kept all my property documents. The deed was there, clear and unambiguous. The house was in my name, only my name. My parents had no legal claim to it. I drafted an email to my attorney, Gregory, explaining the situation and asking for an emergency consultation. Then I opened my banking app and reviewed my mortgage statements, my property tax payments, my insurance records. Everything was in order. Everything was in my name. Saturday morning, I drove back to the house early. The place looked even worse in the bright daylight, the damage stark and undeniable. I walked through each room, making notes on my phone about every single thing that had been damaged or removed. The custom light fixtures I had bought from a craftsman in Fredericksburg? Gone. The hardwood floors I had refinished? Scratched and gouged. Even the built-in bookshelves and what used to be the reading nook had been ripped out. I was photographing the damage when I heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw Jacob's silver sedan. My brother stepped out, followed by his wife, Victoria. Jacob was 34, 3 years older than me, with our father's tall frame and our mother's easy charm. He had always been the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. Victoria was petite and blonde, with a sweet smile I had never quite trusted. They walked in without knocking. "Bella." "Hey," Jacob said, grinning, completely unbothered by the chaos around him. "Mom said you were upset about the renovation. I thought I'd come by and show you the plans. Once you see what we're doing, you're going to love it." I sat my phone down carefully, my eyes fixed on his. "Jacob, this is my house, right?" "Yeah, of course." He pulled out his phone, ready to show off his imaginary new life. "But Mom and Dad explained about the arrangement, right? How it makes more sense for Victoria and me to be out here full-time. You're barely here anyway." "There is no arrangement," I said, my voice low and dangerously calm. "This is my property. I own it, and nobody asked my permission before hiring contractors to tear it apart." Victoria stepped forward, her smile still sympathetic, though it felt condescending. "Bella, I know change is hard, but this is really going to be better for everyone." The kitchen was so outdated, and the living room layout was really closed off. "We're opening everything up, adding French doors to the deck, putting in a real master suite upstairs. I don't care," I cut her off, my composure cracking. "I care that this is my house, and you have no right to be here making decisions about renovations I never approved." Jacob's smile faded, replaced by a scowl. "Come on, Bella. Don't be like this. Mom and Dad are helping us out, and it's not like you're using the place. You're always working, always too busy for family. Victoria and I actually want to be here." The implication was clear. I was the selfish career woman, too focused on work to appreciate what I had, while Jacob and Victoria understood the true value of family and home. It was the same narrative I had heard my entire life. "Get out," I said quietly, the tremor returning to my voice. Then, with newfound force, "Bella, get out of my house right now, both of you, or I am calling the police." Victoria's sweet smile turned sharp, her eyes flashing. "You know, your mother was right. You are being incredibly selfish about this." "I am acting like someone whose property was illegally vandalized," I shot back, my voice now firm. "Leave now." They left. And I stood alone in the ruins of my living room, my heart pounding, a cold fury now replacing the initial shock. I called Gregory from the front porch, looking out at the lake that had always brought me peace. He answered on the second ring. "Bella, I got your email. This is quite a situation." I explained everything that had happened since yesterday, including the conversation with Jacob and Victoria. Gregory listened without interrupting. "All right," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Here's what we're going to do. First, you need to document everything. Every piece of damage, every conversation, every text message. Second, I'm going to draft a cease and desist letter to the contractors and your family members, making it clear that no further work is to be done without your written authorization. Third, we're going to send formal notice that any family members currently occupying or attempting to occupy your property are doing so illegally." "My parents are going to lose their minds," I said, picturing the explosion. "That is not your problem," Gregory replied, unflustered. "What they did is trespassing and destruction of property at minimum. You would be well within your rights to press charges, though I wouldn't recommend starting there." "What about the renovation? Can I hold them liable for the costs?" "Absolutely. If they hired contractors without your permission, they are responsible for both the cost of the unauthorized work and the cost of restoring your property to its previous condition." "Do you have documentation of what the house looked like before?" I thought of the dozens of photos I had taken over the years, carefully chronicling every improvement. "Yes, I have everything." "Good. Send me all of it. I will put together a demand letter as well." "And if they don't pay," Gregory paused, the gravity of his next words hanging in the air. Then we take them to court. But Bella, I have to ask, are you prepared for that? Suing your family is going to create a permanent rift. I looked at the exposed beams of my demolished living room, at the construction equipment scattered across my floor. I thought about my mother's casual dismissal of my ownership, Jacob's entitled assumption that he could just take what was mine. Yes, I said, my voice clear and unwavering. I am prepared. That afternoon, I spent hours gathering every piece of documentation I had. Photos of the house before and after each improvement, receipts for the appliances, the furniture, the custom work, my mortgage statements and property tax records, screenshots of my mother's text messages, none of which mentioned any renovation plans. I even had a recording of my conversation with Jacob and Victoria, which I had started as soon as I heard them pull up. I organized everything into folders and sent it all to Gregory. Then, with a deep breath, I drafted a message to my family group chat. I need to make something very clear, I wrote. The lake house is my property. I purchased it with my own money. I pay the mortgage with my own money, and I am the sole owner according to the deed. No one had my permission to hire contractors or begin any renovations. Effective immediately, all work must stop and all family members must vacate the property. My attorney will be sending formal notice of this shortly. Any further trespassing or damage to my property will result in legal action. I hesitated before hitting send. This was it. The moment I drew a line that could not be uncrossed. I hit send. The responses came almost immediately. My mother first, a long paragraph about how hurt she was that I would threaten the family with legal action. My father's was shorter, saying I was overreacting. Jacob's message was pure fury, accusing me of ruining his plans and being vindictive out of jealousy. I muted the group chat and set my phone face down. Sunday morning, I met Jessica for coffee at a small cafe in town. She hugged me tightly when she saw me. You look terrible, she said, which was why I loved her. Jessica never sugarcoated anything. I feel terrible, I admitted. We sat down with our coffees, and I filled her in on everything that had happened since our phone call. I can't believe Jacob actually showed up and acted like he had a right to be there, she fumed. The entitlement is unreal. That's the worst part, I said. He genuinely doesn't see anything wrong with it. None of them do. What did Gregory say? He's drafting all the legal notices. They should go out tomorrow. He thinks once my parents see official legal documents, they'll back down. Jessica frowned. Do you think they will? I stirred my coffee, staring into the swirling brown liquid. I don't know. The family I thought I knew would never have done this in the first place. My phone buzzed. Another message in the family group chat. This time from my Aunt Linda. I cannot believe you would treat your parents this way after everything they have done for you. I showed it to Jessica, who rolled her eyes. Let me guess. She has no idea what actually happened. She just heard your mom's version. Exactly. I muted notifications from my aunt. More were coming in now, cousins and family friends, all apparently getting updates from my mother about my terrible behavior. You know what you need to do, Jessica said, her gaze steady. Fight back. Not just legally, but publicly. If they're going to tell everyone you're being unreasonable, you need to make sure people know the truth. I don't want to air family drama on social media. I'm not talking about social media. I'm talking about facts. When people ask you what's going on, and they will, you tell them the truth. Your parents hired contractors to demolish your house without permission so they could give it to your brother. Period. No emotion, no drama, just facts. She was right. I had spent my whole life trying to keep the peace, trying not to make waves. But staying quiet had not protected me. It had just made it easier for them to take advantage. Okay, I said, a new resolve hardening my voice. Facts only. I can do that. Monday morning arrived with an email from Gregory. The cease and desist letters had been sent via certified mail and email to my parents, Jacob, Victoria, and the contracting company. I read through the legal language, clear and unambiguous, laying out my ownership of the property and demanding all work stop immediately. There was also a demand letter requiring my parents to pay for all damage to the property, with a deadline of 15 days to respond. I was sitting in the hotel breakfast room when my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. Then my father. Then Jacob. I ignored them all. The voicemail notifications piled up. I waited until after I finished my coffee before listening to them. My mother's voice was shrill with anger. Bella, what have you done? We just received a legal threat from some attorney claiming we trespassed on your property. This is absurd. You need to call this off right now before you embarrass the entire family. My father sounded tired and disappointed. Bella, honey, I know you're upset, but getting lawyers involved is not the answer. Please call your mother back so we can work this out. Jacob was furious. Are you kidding me right now? You sent us a cease and desist. Victoria is in tears. Mom is having a breakdown. All because you can't share a stupid house that you barely use. Grow up, Bella. I deleted all the voicemails. They weren't going to bully me into backing down. I opened my laptop. Time to start researching restoration contractors and getting quotes for fixing the damage. By Tuesday afternoon, I had estimates from 3 different contractors on the cost of restoring my house to its previous condition. The numbers were staggering. Between the custom cabinets that had been destroyed, the hardwood floors that were damaged, the fixtures that were missing, and the labor to undo all the demolition work, I was looking at close to $90,000 in repairs. I sent all the estimates to Gregory with a note. Does this seem reasonable? He called me instead of emailing back. The estimates are consistent with the scope of damage you documented. The problem is that demolition is always faster and cheaper than restoration. They tore out your kitchen in a day. It's going to take weeks to rebuild it properly. And since you had custom work before, you're going to pay custom prices to replace it. $90,000, I said, still processing the number. Yes, and that's actually on the conservative end. If you wanted to upgrade to the level of finishes they were planning to install for your brother, it would be significantly more. I don't want what they were planning. I want what I had. Understood. I will include these estimates in our demand to your parents. Speaking of which, we received a response from their attorney this morning. My stomach dropped. They hired a lawyer? They did. A friend of your father's, apparently. The response is not strong. He's arguing that your parents had implied permission to make improvements based on your conversation at dinner and their financial contribution to your down payment 5 years ago. That's ridiculous. I agree. And frankly, so would any judge. The law is very clear on property ownership. But it does mean they are fighting this rather than accepting responsibility. I closed my eyes. Part of me had hoped that once they saw the legal documents, they would back down and apologize. That hope was dead now. What's our next step? I asked, my voice flat. We file a lawsuit. Civil trespass and destruction of property. We sue for the cost of repairs, plus damages for loss of use of your property during the restoration period, plus legal fees. Given the documentation you have, this is a straightforward case. How long will it take? Could be anywhere from 6 months to a year before we get to trial, unless they settle. But in the meantime, we can request an emergency restraining order preventing any further work on the property and requiring your family members to stay away. Do it, I said. All of it. The next few days blurred together. I hired one of the restoration contractors to begin work immediately, paying out of my savings account and documenting every expense. The restraining order was granted, with the judge clearly unimpressed by my family's legal arguments. My parents and Jacob were ordered to stay at least 500 feet from the property until the case was resolved. The family fallout was immediate and brutal. My phone exploded with messages from relatives I barely knew, all telling me I was destroying the family over money. My mother's best friend called to tell me I should be ashamed of myself. My grandmother, 86 years old and usually kind, left a voicemail saying she was disappointed in the woman I had become. Only Jessica and a handful of my work friends understood. They're circling the wagons, Jessica said when I showed her some of the messages. Classic family behavior. You're threatening the established order, so everyone is rallying to protect it. I just wanted them to admit what they did was wrong and pay to fix it, I said, feeling utterly exhausted. That's all. You don't have to destroy anything. You just have to stand up for yourself. And in your family, that is the same thing. By Friday, 1 week after I had discovered the destruction, I was back in Austin for work. The restoration on the house was underway, with the contractor promising to have everything finished in 6 weeks. The lawsuit was filed. The restraining order was in place. And I had not spoken directly to any member of my immediate family since the day I sent the group chat message. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction, but my concentration was shot. I kept checking my phone for updates from Gregory, from the contractor, for new messages from relatives who wanted to tell me what a terrible person I was. At my desk on Wednesday afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Is this Bella? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes. Who is this? My name is Patricia. I'm calling from Henderson Construction, the company that was doing work on your property before we received the cease and desist letter. I wanted to reach out personally because something about this situation has been bothering me, Patricia continued, her voice careful and measured. When your parents hired us, they presented documentation that they said proved they had the right to authorize work on the property. After we received the legal notice from your attorney, I pulled our file to review everything. Okay, I said slowly, my heart rate picking up. The documents they showed us were partially falsified, or at least they misrepresented what they were. They had a copy of your property deed, but they told us it was in their name. They also had what they claimed was a power of attorney, giving them the right to make decisions about the property. After your attorney's letter, I had our legal team verify the deed. It is in your name only, exactly as you stated. There is no power of attorney on file with the county. I felt cold. An icy grip on my chest. They forged documents to hire you? Not forged exactly, more like they lied about what the documents meant. But yes, essentially they misrepresented their authority to hire us. If we had known they did not have legal permission, we never would have accepted the job. Why are you telling me this? Patricia hesitated. Because I've been in this business for 20 years, and I know the difference between a family disagreement and something more serious. What your parents did crosses a line. You deserve to know exactly what happened. Also, frankly, we don't want to be caught in the middle of this lawsuit. If you need any documentation from us about what we were told and what documents we were shown, we will provide it. After I hung up with Patricia, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. My parents had lied to the contractors. They had deliberately misrepresented documents to make it seem like they had the authority to demolish my house. This was not a misunderstanding or a difference of opinion about family property. This was calculated deception. I called Gregory immediately and told him everything Patricia had said. That changes things, he said, his voice grim. If they knowingly misrepresented their authority to the contractors, that could be fraud. It certainly strengthens our civil case significantly. Can you get a written statement from this, Patricia? She said they would provide documentation. Good. Follow up with her and get everything in writing. This might be enough to push them toward a settlement. Most people don't want to go to trial when there's evidence of deliberate deception. But my parents did not settle. Instead, their attorney sent a response claiming that Patricia was lying to protect her company from liability, that my parents had every right to make improvements to a property they had helped purchase, and that I was being vindictive and using the legal system to punish them for treating my brother fairly. I read the response twice, feeling something break inside me. They were not going to admit what they did. They were not going to take responsibility. They were going to fight this all the way, and they were going to keep insisting they were the victims. That night I called Jessica. I need to know something. Be honest. Am I being unreasonable? Is there any part of this where I am in the wrong? Bella, no. Absolutely not. They destroyed your house without permission. They lied to contractors to do it. They are trying to give your property to your brother. There is no universe where you are the bad guy here. Then why does it feel like the whole world thinks I am? Because your family has spent your entire life making you believe that your needs don't matter as much as Jacob's, Jessica said bluntly. And now you are finally pushing back and they can't handle it. So they are mobilizing everyone they know to make you feel guilty and back down. It is manipulation, Bella. Classic manipulation. I knew she was right, but knowing it didn't make it hurt less. The lawsuit moved forward slowly, grinding through discovery and depositions. My parents' attorney tried every delay tactic in the book, asking for continuances and extensions and additional time to respond to every filing. Gregory said it was standard practice for someone trying to drag things out, but it was exhausting. 3 months after I first discovered the destruction, I was deposed by my parents' attorney in a conference room in Austin. He was exactly what I expected, middle-aged, overly confident, wearing an expensive suit and a patronizing smile. "Bella," he started, "can you explain to me why you believe your parents, who contributed $15,000 to your down payment and whom you love very much, would deliberately destroy your property?" "I do not believe they thought of it as destruction," I said carefully, exactly as Gregory had coached me. "I believe they thought they had the right to make these decisions because they have never respected my ownership of the property. But intention does not change the fact that they hired contractors to demolish my kitchen and living room without my permission." "But you did give permission, did you not?" "At dinner, when your mother mentioned the renovations." "No," I cut him off. "My mother mentioned something about updating at some point." I was not paying full attention, and I may have made a non-committal sound. That is not the same as giving permission for the level of work that was done. "So, you admit you were not paying attention to your own mother." Gregory put a hand on my arm. "That is not a question. Please move on." The deposition went on for 3 grueling hours. They asked about my relationship with my parents, with Jacob, about how often I used the house, about my finances, about whether I was jealous of my brother's marriage. They tried every angle to paint me as an unreasonable, difficult person who was making trouble over nothing. I answered every question calmly and factually, exactly as we had practiced. When it was over, Gregory told me I had done well, but I felt hollowed out and exhausted. "They're going to settle," he said as we packed up. That deposition did not go the way they hoped. "Your testimony was clear and consistent, and there is nothing they can use against you. Plus, we have the contractor testimony. They know they are going to lose at trial." "When?" I asked, a sliver of hope rekindling. "Could be weeks, could be a couple of months, but it is coming." I drove back to the lake house that evening. The restoration was nearly complete. The contractor had worked steadily for the past 3 months. The kitchen looked almost exactly as it had before. The living room was finished, the hardwood refinished, new drywall painted, furniture replaced. It looked like my house again, but it didn't feel the same. For months after the initial incident, I received a call from Gregory on a Tuesday morning. "They're offering to settle." "For how much?" "Full cost of restoration, plus your legal fees." No admission of wrongdoing, but a statement that they regret the misunderstanding and will not contest your ownership of the property. I thought about it. The restoration had cost $87,000. My legal fees were up to $40,000 and climbing. This would make me whole financially, even if it did nothing for the emotional damage. "What do you recommend?" I asked. "Take it. I know you want them to admit they were wrong, but you are not going to get that. This gets you paid back and ends the legal battle. You can move on with your life." Moving on with my life. That sounded good. Except I knew my family would tell everyone they had done nothing wrong. That they settled just to end my vindictive lawsuit. That they were the bigger people for not dragging this through the courts. The narrative would still paint me as the problem. "Give me 24 hours to think about it," I said. That night, I sat on the deck of my lake house, looking out at the water under the moonlight. The house was mine again, fully restored, legally protected. The lawsuit would end. I would get my money back. Everything would go back to normal. Except it wouldn't. Because normal had meant being the family member who was expected to accommodate everyone else. Normal had meant watching Jacob get preferential treatment and staying quiet about it. Normal had meant letting small violations slide until they became big ones. I did not want normal anymore. I called Gregory the next morning. "I want a counteroffer." "All right. What do you have in mind?" "Full cost of restoration, legal fees, and an additional $100,000 in damages for emotional distress and loss of use of property. Plus a written apology, signed by both parents, that acknowledges they did not have permission to hire contractors or authorize work on my property, to be provided to the contractors and filed with the county property records." Gregory was quiet for a moment. "That is going to push us back toward trial." They are not going to agree to that. Then we go to trial, I said, my voice firm, no trace of doubt. I am done pretending this was not as bad as it was. 2 weeks later, my parents rejected the counteroffer. Their attorney called it outrageous and vindictive and said they would rather take their chances with a jury than give in to my extortion. Gregory scheduled the trial for 8 weeks out. I spent those weeks preparing for more depositions, this time of my parents and Jacob. I wasn't present for those, but Gregory told me they did not go well for them. My mother got emotional and defensive. My father contradicted himself several times about what documents they had shown the contractors. Jacob admitted under oath that he had been planning to move into the house permanently and that our parents had promised it to him. That last part is actually helpful, Gregory said. It establishes that this was not just about improvements. They were actively trying to transfer the property to your brother without your knowledge or consent. The trial took 3 days. My parents' attorney tried to paint me as an ungrateful daughter who was estranged from her loving family over a simple misunderstanding. He showed photos of family holidays, of me and Jacob as kids, of my parents at my college graduation. He called relatives to testify about what a close family we used to be. But when Gregory cross-examined those same relatives, none of them could explain how being a close family justified demolishing someone's house without permission. None of them could defend the forged power of attorney or the lies told to contractors. I testified on the second day. Gregory walked me through everything: buying the house, the improvements I had made, the years of mortgage payments and care, the discovery of the destruction, the conversations with my family. I kept my voice steady and factual, even when my parents' attorney tried to provoke me. I am happy for my brother's successes, I said calmly when asked about Jacob. But his success does not entitle him to my property. The contractor, Patricia, testified on the third day. She brought documentation of everything my parents had told her company, including notes from the initial consultation where my mother had claimed she and my father were the property owners and were doing renovations before transferring it to their son. The falsified power of attorney was entered into evidence, with an expert witness testifying that it had never been properly executed or filed. By the end of the third day, I could see my parents' attorney knew he was losing. His closing argument focused almost entirely on the emotional aspects about family bonds and forgiveness, and how tragic it was that I was willing to destroy my relationship with my parents over money. Gregory's closing was shorter and more direct. This case is not about family dynamics or emotional disputes. It is about property rights and the rule of law. The defendants do not own this property. They did not have permission to hire contractors or authorize work on this property. They deliberately misrepresented their authority to those contractors. They caused $87,000 in damage. The law is clear. They are liable for that damage, and the plaintiff is entitled to compensation. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the verdict was in my favor on every count. The judge awarded me the full cost of restoration, all legal fees, and $75,000 in additional damages. He also issued a permanent injunction preventing my parents or Jacob from entering the property or making any claims to it. And he ordered my parents to sign a document acknowledging they had acted without authorization, to be filed with the county. I sat in the courtroom and watched my mother cry. My father stared at the table, his face gray and defeated. Jacob looked furious, whispering angrily to Victoria. Their attorney gathered his papers quickly, clearly eager to be done with the case. Gregory leaned over. You won completely. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired and sad and relieved all at once. Outside the courthouse, my parents and Jacob left through a side exit, avoiding me entirely. I stood on the front steps with Gregory and Jessica, who had taken the day off work to be there for me. What now? Jessica asked. Now I try to figure out what my life looks like without the drama, I said, looking out at the city. That weekend, I drove to the lake house. It was mid-October, the weather perfect, the trees just starting to turn color. I walked through every room slowly, running my hands over the restored cabinets, the refinished floors, the new furniture that was close enough to what I had before. It was mine. Completely and legally mine, with court documents to prove it. No one could take it from me now. I made dinner in my restored kitchen. Pasta with vegetables from the farmer's market in town. I ate on the deck, watching the sun set over the water, and felt the tension I had been carrying for 6 months start to ease. My phone buzzed. A message from Jessica. "How is it?" "Peaceful," I typed back. Finally peaceful. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run along the lake trail. When I got back, there was a car in my driveway, my grandmother's old sedan. I approached cautiously. Grandma was sitting on my front porch, a basket beside her. "I brought muffins," she said when she saw me. "Blueberry, your favorite." I sat down on the step below her, not quite ready to trust this. "Grandma, what are you doing here?" I wanted to apologize. She looked older than I remembered, more fragile. "I was wrong about what I said to you. I was wrong to take your mother's side without asking for your side of the story. And I was wrong to think that family always means accepting whatever treatment we get." "Mom told you her version," I said. "She did. And I believed her because I wanted to believe that my daughter would not do something so hurtful to her own child. But then I heard about the trial, about what actually happened, about the lies and the documents and all of it. And I realized your mother was wrong. Your father was wrong. And I was wrong for judging you." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you for saying that. I know it does not fix things, and I know you might not want a relationship with me anymore after the things I said, but I wanted you to know that I see the truth now, and I am proud of you for standing up for yourself." We sat together in silence for a while, eating muffins and watching the lake. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. "Your mother is not doing well," Grandma said eventually. The judgment hit them hard financially, and Jacob is furious with both of them. Apparently, he took out a loan based on their promise that he would have this house, and now he is stuck with debt and no property to show for it. I thought about that. My parents had not just tried to steal my house. They had made promises to Jacob they could not keep, setting him up for his own disappointment and debt. "That is unfortunate," I said carefully. "But it is not my responsibility to fix." "No," Grandma agreed. "It is not. They made their choices. Now they have to live with the consequences." 3 months after the trial, I received a certified letter from my parents' attorney. They were declaring bankruptcy. The judgment against them, combined with their legal fees and the debt they had taken on for the renovation they had planned, had destroyed their finances. Their house was going into foreclosure. They were moving into a rental apartment. I called Gregory immediately. "Can they do this?" "They can declare bankruptcy, yes. Whether the debt gets discharged depends on how the court views the circumstances. Given that the debt arose from intentional wrongdoing rather than normal business circumstances, we have grounds to argue it should not be discharged. But it is going to be another legal fight." I sat with that information. Another legal fight. More attorneys, more court dates, more stress. And even if I won, my parents had no money. "What do you want to do?" Gregory asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to fight it, but another part is just exhausted." "Take some time to think about it. We have 60 days to respond." 6 weeks after the bankruptcy filing, I got a phone call that changed everything. "Bella, this is Patricia from Henderson Construction. Do you have a minute to talk?" "Of course," I said, surprised. "I wanted to give you a heads up about something. Your brother Jacob contacted us last week, asking for copies of all our files related to your property. He said he was considering filing his own lawsuit against your parents for promising him property they did not have the right to give away." I sat down. "Jacob is suing Mom and Dad?" "That is what it sounds like. He is claiming they defrauded him by making promises about your house, causing him to take out loans and make plans based on those promises. He wanted our documentation to support his case." After I hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Jacob was suing our parents. The golden child was turning on them, angry that their schemes had left him in debt. Whatever fantasy they had built, where the family rallied around them, had utterly collapsed. I called my grandmother, who confirmed it. "He filed papers last week." Your mother called me in hysterics. She cannot understand how her own son could do this to her. I pointed out that she could not understand how her own daughter could sue her either, Grandma added. But apparently that is different. Is it though? I asked. No, Grandma said. It is not different at all. Jacob's lawsuit alleged fraud, breach of promise, and financial harm. He was seeking damages for the loan payments he had made and expectation of living in my lake house, for the costs of his canceled plans, and for emotional distress. Unlike my straightforward property damage case, his was messy and complicated. I watched from a distance as my family tore itself apart. My parents' bankruptcy was delayed while they dealt with Jacob's lawsuit. Family members who had called me vindictive were now split. Some supporting Jacob, others appalled that he would sue his own parents. My mother tried to call me twice. I did not answer. She left voicemails asking me to talk to Jacob, to tell him to drop the lawsuit, to help fix this mess, as if I owed her anything. I deleted the voicemails without responding. In April, 9 months after I discovered the destruction of my house, I stood in my Austin office and looked out at the city skyline. My boss had just offered me a promotion to senior broker with a significant raise and my own team. "You have been one of our best performers," she said, even while dealing with personal issues that would have derailed most people. That is the kind of resilience we value. I accepted the promotion. And that night, Jessica took me out to celebrate. We went to a nice steakhouse in downtown Austin, ordered expensive wine. "You did it," Jessica said, raising her glass. "You fought for yourself. You won and you are thriving. That is the best revenge of all." "Is it revenge if I am just living my life?" I asked, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "Absolutely. The best revenge is success and happiness while the people who wronged you implode. You have both." I thought about my parents and their rental apartment, facing bankruptcy and a lawsuit from their own son. I thought about Jacob, deep in debt and legal trouble, his golden child status tarnished. I thought about the extended family members who had called me selfish, now watching the consequences unfold. And I thought about myself in my restored lake house on weekends, in my Austin apartment during the week, with a new promotion and a life I had built entirely on my own terms. "Yeah," I said, clinking my glass against hers. "I guess it is." The bankruptcy proceedings dragged on through spring. The judge scheduled a hearing for late July. I didn't want to go, but Gregory insisted I needed to be there. My parents sat on the other side of the courtroom with their bankruptcy attorney, looking older and more worn. My mother's hair had gone almost completely white. My father had lost weight, his suit hanging loose. Jacob was there, too, with his own attorney, objecting to the bankruptcy discharge because it would impact his ability to collect on his own judgment. He did not look at me. The hearing lasted 2 hours. My parents' attorney painted a picture of 2 elderly people who had made a mistake and were now being punished beyond reason. He argued that forcing them to pay would leave them destitute. Gregory countered that they had deliberately defrauded contractors and attempted to steal property, and that allowing them to discharge that debt would send a message that such behavior had no consequences. When it was over, the judge took the matter under advisement, saying he would issue a ruling within 30 days. I left the courthouse and drove straight to the lake house, needing peace. I sat on my deck with a cold drink and tried not to think about my parents' defeated faces. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Victoria. Can we talk?" I stared at the message before responding. "About what?" "About everything, please. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I would like to explain some things. Can I buy you coffee?" Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her the following weekend at a coffee shop halfway between Austin and where she and Jacob were living. She looked different when I walked in. Thinner, more tired, her usual polished appearance slightly frayed. We got our coffees and sat at a corner table. "Thank you for meeting me," Victoria said, her voice quiet. "I was not sure you would." "I'm not sure why I did," I admitted wearily. "What do you want, Victoria?" She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I want to apologize. And I want to explain what was happening behind the scenes. Things you did not know about." "Okay," I said, my guard still up. "Your mother came to us about 2 years ago with the idea of the lake house. She said you barely used it, that it would be perfect for Jacob's satellite office plan. We were hesitant at first, but she was so persuasive. She made it sound like you had basically agreed." "I never agreed to anything. I know that now. But your mother was so convincing." Victoria continued, her voice quiet, almost a confession. Your parents took out a home equity loan on their house to pay for the renovation. They told us it was an investment, that they were making the house nicer before transferring it to Jacob. They promised that once the work was done, you would sign the property over because it was the right thing to do for family. That was never going to happen, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. I know. And I think deep down Jacob knew it too. But your mother was so certain, so confident. She had this whole vision worked out, and we wanted to believe it because we needed it to be true. Jacob's business was not doing as well as he let people believe. The idea of having the lake house, of not having to pay rent or a mortgage somewhere, was really appealing. I sipped my coffee, letting her talk, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. When you refused to go along with it, when you sent that cease and desist letter, your mother told us you were being vindictive and jealous. She said you had always been difficult about Jacob's success. We believed her. I believed her, and I said terrible things to you because I thought you were being selfish. You called me a spoiled child, I said quietly. I know. I am so sorry. I was wrong about all of it. Your mother manipulated us, and we let her because it served our interests. But you were right. It was your house. You had every right to protect it. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, searching her face. Victoria looked down at her coffee. Because I am divorcing Jacob. And because I think you deserve to know the truth about what was happening, even if it does not change anything. I sat back stunned. You are divorcing him? The stress of all this, the lawsuits, the debt, it destroyed us. But more than that, I realized that Jacob is exactly like your mother. He feels entitled to things that are not his. He blames other people when his plans do not work out. And I do not want to spend my life with someone like that. We sat in silence for a while. The coffee shop was busy around us, people coming and going, oblivious to the unraveling of a family. I don't forgive you, I said eventually. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but I appreciate you telling me this. Victoria nodded. That's fair. I just wanted you to know that not everything was as it seemed. Your mother orchestrated a lot of this. And while Jacob and I were willing participants, we were also being manipulated. After she left, I sat alone in the coffee shop for a long time, processing everything. My parents had taken out a home equity loan to fund the renovation. They had promised the house to Jacob as if it were theirs to give. They had built an entire fantasy and convinced themselves it would work out. And when I refused to play along, the whole thing collapsed. The bankruptcy judge issued his ruling in August. He allowed my parents to discharge most of their debts, but he specifically excluded the judgment I held against them. His written opinion stated that debts arising from intentional wrongdoing and fraud could not be discharged. It meant they still owed me the full amount of the judgment. They would be making payments to me for years. Gregory called to tell me the news. This is a significant win. The judge saw through their attempt to escape responsibility. They will never actually pay it, though, I said. They are living on fixed income. Probably not, Gregory admitted. But that is not really the point anymore, is it? He was right. The money did not matter as much as I thought it would. What mattered was that I had stood up for myself and won. Jacob's lawsuit against our parents settled out of court in September. The terms were confidential, but my grandmother told me that our parents agreed to sign over the title to their car and make small monthly payments. It was a fraction of what he had asked for. The family is completely fractured now, Grandma said, her voice tinged with sadness. Your parents are not speaking to either of their children. Jacob and Victoria's divorce is ugly. Half the extended family has taken sides or stopped attending events. Thanksgiving is going to be awkward. I'm not going to be there anyway, I said. I know, but I wanted you to hear it from me. Your mother keeps saying that you destroyed the family with your selfishness. But those of us who were paying attention know that is not true. She destroyed the family by trying to steal from you. In October, a year after the initial discovery, I threw a party at the lake house. Not a family gathering, a party for my friends, my colleagues, the people who had supported me. Jessica helped me plan it, and we invited 30 people for an autumn afternoon. People swam in the lake, even though the water was getting cold. We grilled food. Someone brought a guitar and played folk songs as the sun set. I stood on my deck, looking out at the people who had chosen to be in my life, and felt grateful. "This is nice," Jessica said, coming to stand beside me. "You look happy." "I am happy," I admitted, a genuine, deep-seated joy blossoming inside me. I realized for the first time in a year, I am actually happy. "Good. You deserve it." My parents never recovered financially or emotionally from the double blow of my lawsuit and Jacob's. Their bankruptcy left them with ruined credit and limited options. My mother, who had once been the social center of the family, found herself isolated as more relatives learned the truth about what she had done. Sunday dinners stopped. Holiday gatherings became awkward, sparsely attended affairs. My father's apology letters to various family members had circulated, cementing their role as the villains rather than mine. Jacob's business struggled under the weight of his debt, and his reputation took a hit when word spread about him suing his own parents. His divorce from Victoria was finalized with her getting most of their shared assets, leaving him in a small apartment, working twice as hard for half the success he once enjoyed. The golden child had tarnished, and no amount of defending could polish that away. I stood on my dock one evening in November, looking at my house, my property, my sanctuary, that I had defended and won back, and I felt something settle deep in my chest. The anger was gone, the hurt was fading. What remained was a quiet certainty that I had done the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it cost me relationships I had once valued. I had learned that protecting yourself is not selfish, that standing up for your rights is not vindictive, and that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you are the ones who will hurt you most if you let them. Looking back on everything, on the discovery and the fights and the lawsuits and the long, painful year of reclaiming what was mine, I realized this was never really about a house at all. It was about refusing to disappear, refusing to be convenient, refusing to sacrifice myself for people who saw me only as an obstacle to what they wanted. And in that refusal, in that fight, I had finally found myself again. This whole experience forced me to redefine what family truly means and where my boundaries lie. It was messy, heartbreaking, and empowering all at once. I'm curious to hear from you. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to fight for yourself against your own family? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.